Hi everyone, it's Eileen. I wanted to get on here today to share about my nonfiction guided reading passages, which include the level passages themselves and so much more. So I created these, I started creating my reading passages several years ago when I realized that as a reading specialist, I had all these passages or books provided for me, but teachers had to do a lot more work actually finding good books and resources to use with their students during guided reading groups. So I started creating these as a way to make their lives easier and to help out classroom teachers. So I've included everything there for you. I've done a lot of guided reading lessons in my teaching career, and I know all the components that are super important to include in your lessons. So I have everything there for you, from the lesson plan to the level passage to the vocabulary cards, comprehension questions, and the running record. So it's all organized for you, and then really you just are there obviously leading the lesson and getting your readers to continuing to love reading and making progress. So the first thing that I always recommend to teachers is to make sure that your readers are able to take ownership of the lessons, and this can be done by, I provide a reading folder cover within each passage pack, and I recommend putting it on top of a folder or, in a little binder for them, something that really makes it like their own. So you could even just staple it to the front of some of the passages. But I recommend something that's sturdy that you can have students referring back to frequently, because they are going to be reading lots of passages, and it's a great thing to have that they can then reread, during independent reading time, if they take it home, whatever it is, however you want to use it. So I do have a lesson plan that comes with each passage, and I break it into before, during, and after reading, and each part is basically 5 minutes long. You can vary it depending on how much time you have with your groups, but I break it down so that you can see what you should be saying and what you should be reviewing before, during, and after reading. So before reading, this is where you're actually introducing the text, as well as sight words and vocabulary words that they're going to be seen in the story. And since this is nonfiction, there are going to be a lot more intense vocabulary words that the readers are expected to be reading. So it's really important to actually review these, especially with kids who definitely need that extra help. If they don't need it, by all means, you can hand them the passage and just have them go to it and start reading. But you can also have them make specific words that have different patterns that they'll see in the story. So like blends, for example, or digraphs, have them identify one, and I usually list them in the lesson plan itself, and then they can go find it. And then when they're actually reading, they'll remember how to figure out those different words. And then you're also setting a purpose before they're actually reading, so that they know why they're reading the text for that day. During reading, this is when the students are actually reading. So in the lower levels, I usually have them whisper read so that you know for sure they're doing it, because otherwise they tend to just say like, I'm done, but they haven't really read anything. So having them whisper read so that you can kind of peek in and listen in as they're going. Otherwise, with the older level students, I usually recommend just having them read it in their heads. And I just have them kind of one at a time will read a page to me, a paragraph, whatever it is, so that I know that they're actually reading it. And a lot of times I will just send them off, especially in the upper grades, to read on their own. And then, like I said, kind of just walk around the room and listen in when it's their turn. So during this time, you are actually just guiding the readers. I have prompts provided that are specific for that level, for the kids. That'll help those kids as they're reading. So this is only if it's necessary. Really, you want the during reading part to be that those kids are really reading and focusing on how they can apply the different things that they know to new words. Then after reading, you are actually discussing the text, and I provide questions that are specific for that level, especially that grade level, to go with the nonfiction text. And then I also have comprehension questions that kids are going to be answering individually. So in the lower levels, there's 2 to 3 questions, and they might have a picture one to do at the very earliest levels. Otherwise, it's just writing. And then the upper grades, I have 4 different comprehension questions, and they're a little more in-depth and really require specific evidence from the text. So if you have independent kids, you can definitely have them start answering the comprehension questions before everyone else is ready, if they've completed their reading, and then you can go back and discuss it afterwards. And then I always have the readers highlight words or evidence from the text to show that they really were focused on it as they were answering the questions. Then another piece for you as the teacher is to follow up to make sure that your kids are really reading at the right level. So I provide running records that you can use for each story, and this is a way just to ensure that your students have either found the right level, or you need to move them up to another level, or they're not quite ready for this one and you really need to work a little bit more with that specific student. So you can list their errors as they go, as well as any self-corrects and notes that you noticed about their patterns as they were reading. And then you just overall figure out what their score is from the percentages below. And this I usually recommend to do as a second read. It's totally up to you. You can do it as a cold read, but I like to do this as a second read so that the kids have seen the passage, and it's just like a follow-up to see like, okay, yeah, this was a good one for them. So I do have these from levels pre-A to V, so that is kindergarten through 5th grade covered, and each passage includes the vocabulary cards, the lesson plan, the running record, and then the comprehension questions to go with that story. And there are 10 passages per level for pre-A through V. So you can check them out in my store, Eileen Klassen.